bounce back.
So we're into draft here, and we'll see what Suning have up their sleeves and whether or not they're going to change things up. Because I feel like, honestly, the draft went fine for Suning in game number 1. Most of the game went fine for Suning in game number 1. I'm curious if they feel like any of this was an issue.
Thus far, it's the same. The only thing left open that they banned last time was the Renekton. We'll see if they go for that once again, or if they opt into trying to first pick that themselves.
The Graves banned away from Weiwei, and I can understand that. Weiwei did look good. And I mean, Weiwei always looks good on the Graves. Weiwei seems to look good with whatever he picks.
So now you wonder, does Suning go for the first pick Zoe once again, or because now that the Renekton's open, do they take that one away from Bubu?
We'll have to see what the ban is going to be here for V5, whether they do try and focus towards that top lane. Whether this Renekton is something that they fear on the first pick, but it's going to be mutual respect in the jungle. And SOFM loses that Lee Sin, so now Suning have to change tact coming into game.
I love that ban for the fact that every other jungler that they play is a shared champion between Weiwei and SOFM. The Lee Sin's really the only one where I'd say SOFM looks like a clear standout, and Weiwei isn't really known for it himself. So, again, now it's about, are they going to take that Renekton, which V5 kept first picking against FPX?
They certainly are. Ben going to grab that one for himself. It's a very, very high priority pick in this series because Bubu has played it 17 times across the course of this split, but Bin going to have that one for himself in the matchup. And I'm curious now what Bubu thinks is the best answer to this.
Yeah, I was going to say I expect Mole to pick up the Zoe, but now there's a few different options for V5 because we only got to see V5 one game on red side against FPX. They definitely prefer blue side. Do they want to take an early Ashe here, which has been Sam D's go-to all split long? Or do you pick up, a different priority jungler, maybe something like the Volibear?
I'm curious where we go, what direction in that bottom lane specifically as well, because PB God said in that interview they're looking to tone up the aggression on the bottom side of the map. It's obviously not what we saw in game number 1 because everything was so top side focused, but we could see things changing up here. So it looks like Weiwei may opt into a more supportive jungler here with the Trundle.
This one's a bit of a surprise because we've seen teams fall away from this pick, in recent series, instead preferring to go for things like the Set, things like the Volibear. So, going to take this one. It's setting up more for this comp that doesn't want to kite back once the Siege. You're going to have some good disengage and some good peel coming out from the Trundle as well. Is a very strong early duelist, so that's one area where we know Weiwei thrives.
So now over to the side of Suning as they have to decide what matchups they're going to go for here. They can go for the Syndra in that mid lane. Very safe pick into the Zoe. And this Ashe, it would not surprise me to see Huanfeng lock this in, but it would have been nice to see him on something like the Ezreal that he has had some truly standout games.
Especially then they have a strong top laner, they have this mid laner that can play a lot around soul lanes and leave Huanfeng to scale up on his own, which is what PP God even expected them to do, but Suning setting up for this very strong early game-oriented pick composition so far. Syndra going to do quite well into the Zoe early on, but we need to remember she has been nerfed. It was the late game damage coming out from her Q, so
one thing that is incredibly valuable about this pick for Suning, though, the Ashe, is that it does limit what Sam D can do in the bottom side. So when you look at Sam D's picks across the split, Ashe by far his most picked champion, but then his second most picked is the Kalista, which really doesn't do so hot against Ashe in that bottom lane. So you can limit the aggression somewhat in the bottom side from V5.
And this is how we saw FPX beat them in the regular split. They banned out the Kalista, they would take away the Ashe for themselves, and then Sam D was really left with nothing else to pick. Obviously now feels very comfortable with this Jhin, and we saw in game 1 he had a bit of an impact later on, but still, I wouldn't say it was exactly what we know Sam D for, like earlier on in the split where he was putting up massive numbers in the game.
We're going to see two junglers banned here. By the side of V5, Lilia and Jarvan. I have to say, I'm a little bit surprised to see Lilia bad this coming through, but she has been increasing in priority, certainly from what we hear from scrims.
Yep, and SOFM has been spamming her in solo queue alongside Angel playing some interesting champions, but we haven't gotten to see any of those yet. We have the Syndra already locked in.
Yeah, we'll come around to that if it ever roots its head around, but Tahm Kench's going to be removed, so PP God doesn't get that pick. Bubu also can't have the big team fight ult in the form of the Ornn here. And now we could be looking towards things like the Mordekaiser and the Wukong for the top laner of V5.
I think V5 might even just go back towards the Bard. Like, you have a bunch of immobile carries on the side of Suning, so you're still going to have that Tempered Fate threat able to come out and pick off a lot of these members. And then once again, just save counter pick for top.
Looks like they're not going to opt for that strategy here, going for the Gangplank here to answer, which is something Bubu's only played one time, but now that Bard you mentioned before is open for Sword Art.
And I was dumb, obviously Suning at first pick top, so makes sense just to get the counter pick now. Of course, GP does great in this matchup. It's only Bubu's second time playing this champion, so that's going to be interesting. And Suning instead wanting to default towards, I'd say, comfort.
I'm a little bit surprised that they don't go for the Bard here because, I mean, let's be honest, the Bard is also comfort for Sword Art. He's played it equally to the Nautilus across the course of this split, but the Ashe Bard combo, we have seen some insane success with that as a duo. I mean, Sam D and PP God specifically, I distinctly remember them making some insane long-range picks down in that bottom side of the map. But now for SOFM in this last pick.
This signals to me that they are cognizant, want to play more around their bottom half of the map, to where obviously Nautilus does have that kill pressure in lane alongside the Ashe. You're going to be able to guarantee that pressure. And then now along with this Olaf, Suning very much signaling they want to play to start stacking up early Drake. So completely shifting their play style from the regular split to now, what I'm guessing is to try to counteract what V5 have always been known for.
Trying to play a little bit more around the early game. PP God here, I think realizing that going for a bit more of an aggressive support that can set up for the rest of his team, because if he can get that CC down, his carries certainly have a lot of follow-up damage.
And once again, a lot of burst coming out from both sides. I'd say Suning's comp does look a bit more interesting in the early game. Also, something to note is that they picked the Olaf into the Trundle, which obviously Trundle's always been viewed as the answer to Olaf because you could pillar him out from being able to pick up his axe. Your Q also does quite well with, stealing away that AD. So SOFM going back to a bit of comfort, even in a unfavorable matchup.
But that's not something that's super uncommon in the LPL, right? A lot of our players in the LPL are favored to just go for a comfortable champion as opposed to the perfect matchup. And we've seen it succeed in the past. We'll see if SOFM can make it succeed here today with this Olaf pick. But again, early aggression is the name of the game from SOFM. We saw that in game number 1. We'll see if it's going to be the repeat performance or whether he goes for more of a power farming version of Olaf.
Yeah, and the great thing for him is he has set up in all 3 of his lanes, so I still expect a slow start. Olaf is one of our junglers who likes to get off that full clear. He has, such a fast clear speed as well. But then around that level 4 mark, you have a Renekton on the top side, you have some set up there. Mid, you have Scout of the Week on the Syndra. Ashe and Nautilus are going to be able to provide a lot of support, but I would expect Suning to play around the bot side in that 5 to 7 minute mark and start picking up those early Drakes.
It's important to mention as well, though, that Mole has his Zoe, and we know what Mole can do on this pick. Angel wasn't able to have enough of an impact in game number 1. Let's see what Mole can do here in game 2. We're ready for game 2 here between Victory 5 and Suning. So many of the players on the Rift have played for Suning over the years and now colliding in playoffs in our first quarterfinal. So much dignity on the line between these two teams, especially for Suning after getting such a tremendous lead in game 1 and losing it all to the Baron.
I agree, and the thing that's going to be interesting about this matchup, right, is this is the highest both organizations have ever finished in LPL playoffs. Suning as an org have made it every summer split since they qualified in 2017, but always fell out in the first round. V5 have been nowhere close to playoffs since joining the league last year, so already this is a career high for both orgs, but you definitely don't want it to end here, especially when you could fight for that potential spot in the regional finals.
Yeah, this is a career high.
To win LPL, actually. Why am I saying regional finals?
Yeah, there's still a whole tournament before the regional finals come on through. But this is a career high for every single player on the side of V5, and especially for the likes of Mole. I think this is going to be, this playoffs in general has been such a huge moment for him, especially after Spring. Spring was rough for Mole. You could see that. I mean, the spring performance out of Mole versus the summer performance out of Mole feels like a case study in mental boom to me.
Yeah, and we need to remember that he even said coming into the split, his only goal was to win 5 games, guys. Mole just wanted to win 5 games. And, I mean, he's way overperformed that expectation.
Yeah, he's doing all right. He's managed to make it to playoffs. He's managed to make it to guaranteed top 6, and we'll see if he can keep that ball rolling, because I know a lot of you fans at home are hoping for V5 to make it to that World Championship. I'm hoping we get to see Schalke versus V5 at some point in the near future.
Yep. I also want to go back and highlight that we do see phase rush on Olaf. I actually saw this 2 days ago when Wei himself picked it up against FPX. Obviously, gives you a lot more sticking power on these targets once you are able to hit that axe. I'd say it's a bit more versatile in team fights, obviously being able to maneuver around, get in and out, especially up against Trundle when you aren't really looking for those duels.
Nice aggression in this bottom lane and add a Sword Art to start the series off. And I want to quickly mention what's at stake here, because obviously both of these teams, they'd love to win this series, they'd love to make it through into the semifinals, maybe even to finals, maybe even just guarantee qualification for Worlds. But Worlds is really what this is all about. And both of these teams, if they lose the series, can still make it to the regional final. It just becomes much more difficult, and there are a few more factors in whether or not they're going to be able to make it to the World Championship. So just getting a win in this best of 5 makes life a lot easier. Angel now could be in trouble as Scatter the Weak goes through onto Wei. Nice stun coming out, and the flash means that Angel gets out with his life.
Still, this is all you need to do is Trundle, and why Trundle is so good up against immobile mage is you just walk in lane, throw down your pillar, and most of the time that guarantees a flash out from the enemy mid laner. But Suning have Prio on the bot side, SOFM's already here, so sadly Wei isn't going to be able to translate that into the bottom scuttle.
Yeah, can't get that bot lane Scuttle Crab. It means that SOFM grabs that one and heads back to base. And Wei has to settle for the top side on this one. But with a Renekton and a Gangplank on the top side of the map, you don't expect much pressure coming up that side from Wei specifically.
Yeah, and he could potentially look right now because Bin is a bit overextended, but we also see SOFM is naturally heading towards that side since he did full clears jungle towards bot. So it looks like that Bin got the bounce back. So I wonder if they would try to set up something on the GP. I don't feel like it's really necessary. It would just be a bit of a luxury kill for the Renekton. I still feel like the goal for Suning is now once they get through this next jungle clear and end up bot for Drake.
That would be the question, is if they can set something up for Drake, but they're going to go for Bubu on the top side. Immediate flash, but Bin follows it, looks for the stun. There's going to be an orange, so gets himself out of the CC, but SOFM is going for a kill here. He wants blood. First one will go to him, but it's a trade kill. And now Mole can answer. V5 are finding everything they want. There's a flash in the pocket of Mole. Bin can't go anywhere from this one. Does get a stun, but realistically, there's no way to get through that health bar. Mole chases over, uses his real flash, and gets the second kill of the game.
And great play from Mole. You need to remember a big part of Zoe's play pattern is her passive, which is empowered auto attacks after use ability. So Mole feeling confident he can win that 1v1 regardless. And I just said, Suning didn't need to really go for that top pick. It would have been a luxury kill had they gotten it. It was great to get the flash, but then over-committing. And, I mean, 2-for-1 trade going the side of Victory 5. And guess what? Bubu ends up missing it on nothing because he TP's mid to just catch that wave.
Yep, Bubu able to grab the wave mid. We get to see Mole as well pushing out on the top side. And you mentioned Bin over-committing to the kill on the top side there. It felt a little bit personal to me. These guys used to be on the same team. These guys were arguing for a spot as the top laner for Suning. And you can see that a little bit in Bin's play.
I feel like it felt personal.
Hang on, PP God engaging on the bottom side. Sword Art dodges the root though. Wei moving in, but I don't think they'll finish anything off just yet. Sword Art's still pretty tanky in the early stages of the game. This is Wei forced out by Huanfeng, who is stepping a little bit too far forward there.
I mean, this looks personal from both sides. We remember, Wei was on Suning last split.
There's a hook coming out. Sam D forced a flash.
Yeah, that was a bit too much coming out from V5, but I think both junglers, I think SOFM on top side was the one who looked pretty angry at Bubu, but as we said, guys, a lot of shared history between these teams.
And it's good to see as well. I like that we're getting to see some raw gameplay out of these two teams. Some of these plays don't necessarily feel as rehearsed as we often see in the LPL. Quite a few of these feel like this is a moment where it's like, all right, I'm going to go for the play. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to get playoffs.
Yep, and now SOFM need the Scuttle Crab. Again, I'm surprised they're not just trying to aggressively look for this Drake. We need to know Bubu does have Cannon Barrage to where Bin would just have to walk down to influence the team fight. So maybe that global pressure dissuading SOFM from wanting to look for this. I do expect him to also want to look to hand off blue to Angel at this point as well.
Bubu taking a bit of a hit there. Doesn't quite get the barrel back onto Bin. This is one of the things about Renekton versus Gangplank. While Gangplank is obviously a late game carry, usually will struggle in the top lane, can do a good job of weathering the storm against the Renekton, can cleanse the stun, but also, importantly, can get a lot of damage down with his barrels when Renekton goes in on top of him. So, Bubu doing a good job so far as SOFM moves into the mid lane here, but everybody is here from V5. Pillar can do a lot. SOFM has the Ragnarok available, has to use it, but might go down anyway on this one. Doesn't have flash, the chase on through, and it's kill for Wei.
Yeah, and we see Suning looking for this pick in mid. They look for the two-man setup, aren't able to get it. Wei was already hovering bot side, which gave Sam D PP God push, allowed them to move mid and answer.
Beautiful stuff coming out here from V5.
And this goes back to what we said about V5, that when they look for plays, they do tend to just all in on one side or one play. They very much are a team. And that was one of the highlight differences between Suning and Victory 5, is that Victory 5 tends to do things as a 4-man or a 5-man core, to where Suning is a lot more about SOFM, maybe Sword Art trying to interact with the individual laners.
And speaking of SOFM, let's bear in mind that Suning went for this Olaf pick. Despite it not really being the most advisable pick into Trundle, it was a comfort pick for SOFM. It's not looking so hot so far in this game.
And I'm guessing that this is just both teams not feeling comfortable with the Volibear after he got the movement speed nerf on his Q. I have heard talking from some players, they think it's quite large, they think it bumps him from S tier, but they also said they still think he's a fine champion, can be played in the meta, is also a flex pick between top and jungle. But they did first pick the Renekton, so maybe not just valuing that one straight up in jungle in isolation. You're also up against a Trundle who is going to steal your tank stats.
It's worth mentioning as well that even if Volibear gets bumped from S tier, I wouldn't exactly call Olaf S tier right now in terms of the meta. We don't see that many teams like first picking Olaf right now.
We never see Olaf. I mean, again, Weiwei himself played Olaf against FPX. That's the only game in recent memory.
Hwangfang going to find PP God in the jungle here.
He has Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but they don't have any vision of where the other Victory 5 members are, so they don't commit.
And also, with SOFM on the top side of the map right now, they know that they're not going to have any support on that play. Bin, though, has had himself some solo time up on the top side, and with a Cannon Wave, might just be able to finish off a second tower play, but Hwangfang, you've stepped too far forward, but the Zenith Blade won't connect, and PP God not level 6. So Hwangfang's going to be all right.
Yeah, and overall, this definitely benefits the side of Suning. You can see BB's feeling a lot of pressure from knowing his jungler's been around bot side to where they don't know where SOFM is. They obviously know now because he's picked up Herald. And now V5 don't have a Bard that can stop that massive Herald play. And this is more reminiscent of the Victory 5 we saw all split long, where it's leave BB on an island, play through the pressure you can generate with bot lane picks as well as, you know, Mol on Zoe.
And that's the big question to me, is what picks can they start to create for themselves? Because V5, they're a team that very explosively will get onto the map in the next few minutes. And I'm curious at what point you're expecting Lyric V5 to start making these explosive plays.
I think even now, right? I think Weiwei can start hovering mid. They're going to have to get a bit of vision control because Suning have done a great job at getting 3 control wards around Angel's lane, so he's not going to feel much pressure. So we see Weiwei and PB God link up right now, clear out some of that vision, and then start making more plays around mid as we saw earlier, and transition that into hovering bot and maybe make a play for bot turret.
Weiwei moving towards the mid lane here, getting some vision down for the top side, but not going to make the play just yet. Scat of the Week comes through. Mole gets stunned but can't commit to anything. Has been finding an opportunity onto Bubu here. Conqueror pop, so is Dominus. Flash is available on both sides. The orange used to get rid of the stun. Bin looks like he's happy with the way the play went. Doesn't want to overcommit because Weiwei's moving in.
The discipline was nice from Bubu to see him not use his ultimate, but still it gives Suning this opportunity in mid. They are going to be able to share that plate gold, and I mean, this is a pretty good position for them. Now they're threatening plays on bot side.
It's a really nice play coming out from Suning to find themselves some turret plates, find an opportunity on the top side in the meantime. And SOFM gets to clear out this jungle, teleport in the mid lane from Mole.
And I do want to credit a lot of that play to Bin, because Bin aggressing onto Bubu forced Weiwei topside, which opened this window for Suning.
SOFM's been caught again though. Ragnarok available, flashes out. And even with a cannon barrage, SOFM is out of that.
Yeah, the pillar was good. Like, it was good and bad, right? It forced the flash, but also didn't allow for anyone to be able to follow up on the play.
SOFM didn't even Ragnarok, by the way. That was just phase rush and a flash. He just sprinted away.
That is the versatility of phase rush and why so many love it as a rune right now. Can be used in both offensive and defensive situations.
Really nice stuff coming out. And I think important as well that SOFM is not getting caught again, because already 1 and 2 in this game, had a couple of rough skirmishes to start this one off. Small going to flash away from the Scat of the Week.
But V5 have finally been able to clear all that vision that Suning had just 2 minutes ago, so this is where they want to start posturing more around mid, maybe throw out that pillar, or even just hover so Mole can do this, get the pressure, then start leaning around bot side and potentially finding kills onto Hwangfang and Sword Art.
Luckily for Suning though, Syndra also incredibly good at clearing those waves in the mid lane. It's not like it's a issue where you've got one mid laner that can just shove in constantly like the Zoe often does. At least Syndra can match that wave clear, at least to some extent, and will be able to rotate around the map.
Especially in the isolated 1v1. I'd say, you know, Syndra is favored in clearing out the waves and putting a bit of pressure on Zoe, not knowing where that Scout of the Week can come from. But whenever Zoe does have someone hovering around, feels very safe and confident to look for those aggressive paddle stars.
It's going to be a turret plate gone, but an arrow in the mid lane. Mole flashing away from that one, but with a depth charge coming in. Going to force a stopwatch out. In comes PP God to try and get some stuns, but Ragnarok going to ruin that one. Scout of the Week there. And PP God surely goes down to the unleashed power. Sword Art getting the kill with his Ignite. And now Wei flashes forward to finish a kill. 1-for-1 in the mid lane.
And great job by Wei to know his limits. Still, Suning were the ones who were able to pick off PP God to start that one off, so it is only a 1-for-1.
Mole caught out here, but Angel needs to be a little cautious. Not going to get caught by too much here, and dodges just about every shot except the fourth one. We'll be able to clear the minion wave in the end. So everything refreshes to 0, but just look at the summoner spells on the side of V5, right? Are not a lot used in that last play.
Yeah, and it was them. It was them making a counterplay, of course. SOFM came first, finding that window to get on top of Mole. So V5 had to react, had to blow a lot to make sure they didn't lose too much. Ultimately a 1-for-1, and Suning are the team with the gold lead.
Suning looking good so far in this series. Huanfeng looking to extend that lead for himself as he 1v1 Samdi, handedly winning the trade.
Enchanted Crystal Arrow is almost back up as well, so Samdi's got to be careful.
Samdi's got to be real careful in this bottom lane, and I have to say, I'm impressed by the bottom lane of Huanfeng and Sword Art, because they're not a lane that we know generally for 2v2 aggression. Bin is playing a dangerous game here on the Renekton. Slice and dice, though, means he should be able to get away with his life. To be honest, I'm surprised that was as easy to get away with as it was.
I mean, right, had Mole not missed that Sleepy Trouble bubble, it feels like a lot more could have happened, but Mole made a mistake, wasn't able to hit it. He also had a flash on his W, so it feels like it should have been pretty guaranteed.
I'm just kind of blown away here for a second. I just heard lyrics say the words "Mole made a mistake." I didn't think you'd ever be willing to admit something like that.
I mean, it hurt me as much as you can imagine it did.
The harbinger of V5 himself. Well, V5 are looking good in the series so far, Lyric. You can be happy with that, with the Game 1 victory. And I have to say, an uncharacteristically slow start to Game 2 from V5.
I do want to point out a bad sign for our Suning fans. We're hitting 15 minutes, Suning have a gold lead.
Uh-oh.
So, got to be a bit scared. But hey, Suning are also picking up another Drake. That's always nice. Getting first turret of the game. And this feels like when their comp is pretty much at its apex, right? We have an early game Olaf, we have a first item Renekton. Huanfeng also going to have that Blade of the Rune King. She already has the Blade of the Rune King, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to push this advantage from the side of Suning. That's going to be an arrow in the bottom lane. Samdi going to be slowed as SOFM wants to move under. Samdi does not have a good direction to run in. Olaf is here. SOFM finishes the kill, and Phase Rush means he can run out at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Now Bin finds himself a 1v1 with Weiwei and has some insane damage to work with. Slice and Dice out of the play. Still has his flash available, but he's going to go for the 2v1 here. Blast Cone can't quite get in range, but the heal comes out, nearly took down Weiwei. Herald resits and they move back towards that objective, but in the meantime, mid lane tower goes down in favor of Suning.
Yeah, overall, Suning making a great set play on the bottom lane, punishing Samdi, sandwiching him from both sides, being able to turn that pressure into a mid lane turret. And then we got to see the individual aspect of Suning we talked about, where they're typically disjointed in kind of what they're doing. Bin trying to stop the Rift Herald take on top side. I can empathize with what he was going for, because had they done that, they went out massively across the map, but two members of V5 on top side, he does go down in the end.
And you know, if his flash is just ever so slightly different there, maybe Bin gets out with the play, but not going to be able to pull it off on this one. It does mean that V5 at least finds something for themselves off the back of all of those shenanigans. A kill onto the Renekton and a Herald as well. But the gold lead now, 2,000 in favor of Suning.
Yeah, we're going to definitely need to see them make good use of this Herald. Once again, I'd love to see it just used in the mid lane. No real reason for V5 to open up long side lanes for either of their carries. But at this point, with the state of the game right now, I feel like V5 are probably just going to be looking to get a bit of gold in their pockets. And once again, we're playing a lot more of a dragon-focused game, which I'm sure all of our viewers know every game is a dragon-focused game in Season 10.
That's true. That's very true. Even when it's a Cloud Soul, we're going to see both these teams focusing on towards that. Worth mentioning, there's a lot of very high-value ults in this game, so Cloud Soul can be good, but Mole caught out and just taken down immediately. There's a kill for Huanfeng. He might find more as well. Wei doesn't have his splash available, but should be able to get out with his life here as PP got happy to tank up the team of Suning.
And Suning are just doing a great job of playing around the pressure their bot lane is generating in mid, right? We see Huanfeng, SOFM, and Sword Art push out the wave, link up, get vision in the top side jungle. Mol isn't respecting. They're able to 4-man collapse. BUB doing a nice job of covering mid in the meantime, and this is a Suning where all 5 members are on the same page.
And I have to say, I am so pleasantly surprised by the Suning mid game that we're seeing in Game 1 and Game 2. Sure, obviously they didn't win Game 1. Things went awry when we got to the Baron, but the control of the map has been beautiful.
Yeah, and we see here them, I'm actually wrong, they were pushing at the top lane. It was Angel and SOFM pushing mid. They come on the rotation, they find a nice pick. And sure, we look at the compositions.
Hang on, we got to find the bottom side here as Weiwei gonna start this one off. He's not that tanky. Unleashed Power can't quite finish him off though, and he will survive with his life. And now Bin finds himself alone. The trouble bubble goes in, and Mole grabs himself a kill off the back of the play. Now Suning want to answer onto Weiwei though. They find themselves one return kill. Mole the target next. Flashes away, but he's going to be slowed. He might just be taken down. Flash from SOFM with a double kill on the Viking, and now they want more.
And we see Suning coming out with an aggressive play. They get counteracted by V5. Great job, V5 picking up 2 picks. But then we see the rest of Suning show up. And SOFM showing if he isn't anything, he is a decisive man. Flashes over that wall and picks up that last kill on the Mole.
And I have to say, even though we were criticizing that Suning sometimes aren't as coordinated as we need them to be, this game, they have looked exceptionally coordinated.
Especially their 3-man unit of like SOFM, Huanfeng, and Sword Art have looked like they're really on the same page. That's why we can see their kill participation is so high. We see Angel's only been involved in 2 kills, Bin 3 himself. So we were talking about especially the jungle support for Victory 5 being some of their strongest points. But in this series, SOFM and Sword Art are really showing up.
Yeah, feels fantastic to see as well for Suning fans out there. But I want to quickly revisit the scoreboard and where we're at in the game right now, because it's an almost 3,000 gold lead in favor of Suning as we head towards the 20-minute mark. It's going to be a Cloud Drake coming up in 30 seconds. But when we look at the items across the board, we're seeing relatively similar power levels for each of our carries.
Yeah, but I would still favor Suning at this point, right? You have the Renekton over the GP. Olaf as well in these early stages is at his strongest point. I even think if Suning wanted to opt for Dragon, V5 should just give it up, but actually Suning are the ones looking to snowball the pace of the game with a gold lead rather than stack up these dragons.
That's what we saw them do in game number 1 as well. Look for these tier 2s as early as possible with the Demolish coming out from Sword Art. Angel got a lot of DPS. I don't know if they're going to be able to finish that tower on this wave, and in the meantime, a Herald is dropped in the mid lane, so Sam D should be able to finish this tower, but with Huanfeng here, perhaps not. Enchanted Crystal Arrow is available. And it looks like they're going to use it on towards Mole instead. Nearly protobelled into the arrow there. That was dicey.
That was not the play. You definitely want to protobell towards the side, but V5 are looking to set up a pick themselves. They know Bin is clearing waves in bot. They're looking to collapse.
Sword Art just strolling through the jungle. Weiwei moving in as his PP god, and Huanfeng, he doesn't have anywhere to go. He's going to go down to start this one off. Angel, the next target, with a curtain call, he's going to be slowed. Should be finished off. Sam D to get the kill, and that's an easy 2 picks for V5.
And this goes back to the criticism of Suning that we were actually just praising them for. We see Sword Art and SOFM go one way in the enemy jungle, leave Angel and Huanfeng in their own in mid. Bin's clearing waves bot, and it just gave V5 a very good angle to punish in the mid lane.
And I feel like we have a fair few inconsistent teams in the LPL, right, where we have different versions of them from game to game. With Suning, I feel like we have different versions of Suning from minute to minute. It seems like one play, it looks amazing, everyone's on the same page. The next time, everyone's all over the shop.
And this is why, for any viewers who are just tuning in for the first time in LPL playoffs, I think their big takeaway for Suning should be is they rely so much on individual skill. They rely on so much on individual skill expression, being able to find those windows themselves, and it's not really about bringing it together as a team. They're not going to force 5-man through mid to guarantee prio to then turn that into river vision. We are going to see Huanfeng off farming, and actually we're going to see...
After game number 1, the way that ended, Suning have still decided that they want to force a Baron play here. Mole going to be checking over the ward. It's going to be spotted. And Suning rightfully decide this ain't the play. BUB forced to flash as Sword Art tries to make an engage happen.
Maybe they watched a lot of top esports and JDG VODs because they do this so often. Those teams turn to Baron every chance they get, and Suning setting up vision to potentially do it again.
Mole could be in trouble here. Unleash power. Angel, easy peasy solo kill.
And this is what Syndra does. One of the reasons why we see Syndra picked into Zoe so often.
Oh my goodness, they've got another pick off the back of it. Weiwei's caught out with the smite going down here. The ignite should be enough, and a reckless blow from SOFM. And now the Baron, this seems like a real opportunity.
And I have no idea why Weiwei was here. You know they're in your jungle. It looks like it was maybe trying to wrap around to help out Mole, but Mole was, of course, going to get deleted in an instant. You give up 2 kills for nothing, and this should be a Baron guaranteed for Suning.
The global ult's coming through from the side of V5 to try and force something. Angel dodges the Zenith blade, and that means PP God can't get into the play. Huanfeng happy to zone away while he DPSs down onto the Baron. No smite available, but the solar flare goes in. Baron so damn low, but V5 trying to make the 3v5. Baron goes the way of Suning. So does 1 kill, and it's all gone wrong for V5.
Suning find the 2 picks necessary. They force the Baron, and V5 are the team that even when they're behind, even when they're in a situation where they shouldn't force, they are always going to look for that coin flip play to get back in. And now Suning sitting at a 4K gold lead.
Honestly, the way V5 plays, it feels like an angry bull at a Matador tournament, right? Where it's just charging around, trying to find the opportunity to skewer the opponent.
So we see Mole get picked off here, but I want to keep my eyes on the minimap. How Weiwei ends up in this position, just walks in. Okay, well, look.
Well,
look,
there we go.
Look, we had V5's vision, right? We had their vision on our screen. They had no vision. They saw nothing. But you know they're there. You know they're not on bot side. Yeah. You know they're not mid.
There's a thing called
there.
Process of elimination.
Yes.
It's like, just because you can't see them doesn't mean they don't exist. Mole is quickly learning that on our screen as he gets stunned by the LT, and there's another kill for our angry Viking. SOFM loving this pick. I criticized it to start the game off, but he's had 6 kills since then, so maybe I'll shut up about the pick. We're going to see Suning charging down the mid lane, and with a 30-second death timer on Mole, maybe they don't stop.
And this game is ending out of nowhere. Suning finding picks only 1 minute ago are leading this into potentially an end.
And what did we say? V5, they may be one of the quickest teams at winning, but they're also one of the quickest at losing games in the LPL. Now a desperate engage as they get on Sword Art. Knockups galore, and Sword Art will go down, but PP God might just fall as well. Bin getting underneath the tower will fall to the final tower shot. Now Angel gets a stun to get him and his team out to safety. BBU trying to chase it down. Huanfeng's still pretty healthy though, as Angel barely gets out with his life here. Sam D stepped too far forward, volley for the slow, and Huanfeng wants to make the play, but Mole comes in at the last possible second. And Weiwei now trying to head them off, trying to close the gap here. SOFM will get caught by the sleepy trouble bubble, but Ragnarok and Ragnarol out of here, says SOFM. BBU can't make the chase. Mole can look for a trouble bubble, but won't find the connection. Blast Cone is here, and SOFM gets out.
I mean, ultimately a ton of kills on both sides, but Suning are able to take an inhibitor, and Suning are still 4K gold up.
Still a commanding position here for Suning, and they bite off a little bit more than they could chew. The fight goes long enough for Mole to respawn.
Yeah, and we see here how it starts. I mean, it's just Mole going in a bit too deep. Sure, Sword Art doesn't hit his dredge line, but Mole not in a position he wants to be in. Hits the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, takes turret aggro, and they push forward.
And then this is the moment where it looked like they could have ended the game. Bin went so deep on the play, ends up getting taken down, and then Mole respawns and makes the play.
Exactly. They keep thinking they can aggress forward. I can understand it, right? They have a ton of bursts coming out from GP and Jin. He isn't able to hit the barrel chain. That one is honestly just unfortunate. And then this is when we talk about Huanfeng, the confidence, this star-level rookie coming out. But guess what? You didn't time that Mole was also coming up. And a bunch of shenanigans back and forth. Still, Suning are the ones who come out ahead.
And you know what? I can respect it from Huanfeng there, because Mole doesn't respawn there. That's a triple kill. That's a highlight reel for the ages, but can't make it happen in the end. Mole comes back up, makes the play. The Colonel's still liking the look of Suning, but he's a little undecided this game.
Well, that's the thing, right? We still have a Trundle and GP on the side of Victory 5, so especially once BBU's able to pick up that Infinity Edge, you know, some of his barrels are going to be hitting massively. And even Trundle right now, Trundle and Leona should be a pretty good force to tank up a lot of the burst damage coming out from the side of Suning. So I like that V5 recognize, hey, we can't take this one. Let's catch a lot of the Super Minions coming into mid, because that's at least a lot of guaranteed goal for Sam D. Get to those next item spikes, and as I'm talking, BBU actually already picks up the IE.
Yeah, so Biu getting strong. He's going to be a bit of a nightmare, especially for Huanfeng during this next fight, because obviously Huanfeng and a mobile AD carry, that cannon barrage can really make his life difficult in the team fights.
The thing is, we need to see him be able to connect those barrel chains, which sadly he wasn't able to do in that last fight in his base. The great thing for him is, obviously the composition from Suning does want to run into them, so that is where GP usually thrives. You have the peel coming out from Weiwei. It just feels like a lot of these fights we're typically seeing Mole overstep, before the fight ever really gets to happen as a 5v5. Actually, both times.
Kind of surprising. Like, Mole has been one of the most consistent players on the roster for V5. He's been such an exceptional mid laner across the course of this split. And on the Zoe, this is kind of Mole's signature pick at this point.
But Mole is known to play on a knife's edge. I mean, that knife's edge in spring was obviously
Nico bot.
Yeah, that was not a good edge to play on, but this also is why he has a lot of these highlight moments, like Knight and Rookie on the Zoe, because he is willing to put himself in danger to find these kills, but, I mean, I don't agree with some of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs, Jordan. Them's the rules of the universe. But I will say, I'm watching this game, and Suning have all of the advantages in the world right now. They've got themselves the gold lead, they've got themselves an inhib in the bottom lane, or in the mid lane, sorry. But I'm still a little bit nervous here, because V5 feels like they're holding on pretty well.
Yeah, and it looks like they're trying to get to their next big item breakpoints of an IE for SamD and maybe a death cap on Mole. So then they're pretty much at max burst potential for a Jhin and a Zoe. And then if they can get on a member like Angel or Huanfeng, they're just gone.
And it feels like a huge moment in this game is going to be the Baron that's up in 25 seconds. If Suning can grab this for themselves, maybe they have what it takes to close this one out. But the scaling is eking forward ever so slowly in favor of V5. Suning, they've got to make something happen to close this one out. They wanted to end the game a few minutes ago. The play was denied. Now the question is, what do they have left in the tank?
The great thing for V5 is they still have 2 blue trinkets available if, Suning want to turn towards that Baron. So it's going to be able to buy them at least a couple minutes of posturing and hopefully then pushing into the jungle as a 5-man. But Suning are ready, and Suning are trying to set up a pick.
They certainly are. Maybe not going straight for the Baron this time, because that's what went wrong in game number 1. Mole been found by SOFM, who's just going to try and run down the Zoe. In the meantime, Weiwei has just been obliterated on the front line. Flash forward, the arrow goes wide, but SamD's still going to be stunned up. Uses the cleanse to try and get away from the play. Cannon barrage to kite this one out, but Mole goes down to SOFM in the end, and it looks like V5 have fallen, and Suning are going to even up the series.
Yep, and Suning have always been able to bring it back in the regular split, so great to see them do it here again, and this is looking competitive, Munchables.
SOFM having a 1v1 with Biu. Misses the flash, but the phase rush, not quite enough. Biu gets himself a consolation prize, but it's not going to matter. This game going the way of Suning. We got a series on our hands, and I'm glad to see it. I was worried for Suning, but they make the play happen.
Exactly, Munchables. And my takeaway from that last fight is, why use your blue trinkets when you can just go face check the vision yourself?
True.
Weiwei learned that lesson, getting blown up right away, but hey.
He learned that lesson twice this game.
Yes, he did. I mean, the first time.
Maybe he didn't learn the lesson the first time.
I guess he didn't, but for Suning, right, it was great to see them be able to step up. They drafted this comp that does play through a lot of early pressure, and we actually saw V5 be the ones once again to be able to step up a bit earlier on, but it was when Suning went to go get that vision for the Baron, they found the pick on Mole, so great foresight coming from Angel. And then, I mean, I don't know why Weiwei was there, but Suning expected him to be there. Suning clearly know him very well. He spent 2 years with the organization. They get Baron off that, and the game was even before that moment.
Yeah.
After that 4K gold lead.
That was a huge snowball in favor of Suning. And we did see the early game was just back and forth both ways. And obviously V5 got themselves a bit of an advantage early on, but Suning were able to answer. They got one of the 2 first Drakes as well. Like, we saw that back and forth, but as soon as Suning grabbed control, they almost immediately won the game. Almost. But that play around the Nexus was dicey at best. That's twice now that we've seen Suning try and bite off more than they can chew.
And I can actually, in retrospect, even game 1, I could see the logic of this Baron bait coming out from Suning, even if it does look a bit hasty to commit to the Baron, because Victory 5 are so overeager. Victory 5 are always going to walk into check, as we've now seen 2 games in a row, so I could see this being a consistent strategy of, trying to break open the mid-game even further, because we've now seen 2 games in a row. Suning are going to keep drafting these more early game-oriented compositions.
And it feels like Suning, most specifically, have figured out a strategy here to shut Mole down. because Mole usually is one of the guys that we are screaming about on the cast because he's usually popping off and finding triple kills and whatnot. This game, so many times we saw Huanfeng getting those ults across to find Mole in the mid lane. So many of these skirmishes we see. I mean, the last fight, SOFM just ran him down.
You know what's disappointing is Suning are definitely putting more resources into shutting down Mole, but it doesn't feel like that's what's shutting down Mole. It felt like this series, Mole's mistakes were very much on himself.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Mole, especially the pick around Barra, was maybe shouldn't have been there, but that's just life, isn't it? Syndra's going to do Syndra things when she finds a squishy Zoe, but all things considered, Suning can be happy with a Game 2 victory. It means we are 1 apiece now on the scoreboard. And my question now for Suning is, can they keep this one up? Because V5 now, with a loss in this series, they're going to have side selection for Game 3.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see if they change up their style, because we saw a few different dimensions against FPX, where some games they played around top, some games they drafted more scaling-oriented compositions with the Orianna coming out, and we also need to remember they do always have Y4 on the bench if they do want to at least change up the dynamic in communication as well.
I'm really curious if we see V5 leaning towards the Ashe themselves here, because we saw PP God saying that they wanted to ramp up the aggression in the bottom lane in the 2v2. That's not going to happen if you're playing against the Ashe. Ashe does such a great job during the laning phase, but also denies that Kalista pick that Sam D loves so much. I wouldn't be too surprised to see Ashe maybe even banned away by V5.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I expect them to switch over to blue side, so they at least won't have to worry about that. And I think coming into blue side, V5 are going to feel much more comfortable because recently they have switched over to being a blue side-oriented team.
Well, we'll have to see if that's going to be the case. We're going to jump into a quick break. Do not go anywhere. The series continues right after this.
What do I look for in a team? An unbelievable AD carry. Angelic Azir